What's going on, guys? It's FJ here with TYT Yugioh, and today I'm going to be coming at you guys with a discussion on what we believe are the best decks to take to YCS Providence this weekend. So let's get right into it. So as you can see, here are the top 4 decks that we think you should be taking to YCS Providence if you're going. Of course, the best deck for an event is completely event-based, so please take this not as a top decks of the format, but rather a top decks to take to this YCS event. So let's get started with Burning Abyss. As we all know, Burning Abyss is it's a very resilient deck. It's been tested time after time again. After multiple hits, it's still surviving fairly well, and that's because of the recursion plays that exist between Seer, Dante, even Graph. Everything being able to float is really important in this deck. And on top of that, the deck is able to play a lot of really powerful cards, such as Beatrice and Dante Pilgrim. These cards are really powerful, Beatrice being essentially a Lavalval Chain on crack, and Dante Pilgrim being untargetable, netting you advantage every single turn. This card's also very good. It also crashes with the Monarchs, which is really powerful. This deck has an odd matchup with Monarchs, because if you have Spell of Trap Destruction, or any other kind of ways to disrupt plays that the Monarchs are going to try to do, sort of like going first and making Beatrice, or having a Twin Twister going second, or Raigeki. Those type of plays are really going to disrupt the Monarch deck and make them unable to play. However, if the Monarch deck gets going, then the matchup can be very difficult because of Prime. And also other things such as Erebus coming back every turn. But the deck is still able to do a lot of powerful things. It can play Speedrun Terratop, which is essentially just a free Dante. You just search Tech Tomborg, and then you don't waste your normal summon. It's really powerful. There's also a Tour Guide from the Underworld, which is just a +1, where you just got to summon Graph, and then from there you just summon free cards, and hopefully you mill something good, and then your board just becomes insane. Phoenix Rhino Warrior, which lets you play under Beatrice, as well as just being a foolish. This card is amazing. And then Seer, which, as stated before, is one of the cards that make this deck ridiculous at grinding out your opponent. Because the existence of Seer, Dante, and also Beatrice, this deck is able to outgrind majority of the decks in the format, which makes it very powerful and a big contender coming into YCS Providence. Following that, we also have Monarchs. Monarchs, we think, is a very powerful deck, because if you go first and you set up your plays by summoning either Aether or Erebus, you'll end up sending a Prime and a Pantheism, at which point you're essentially just two turns ahead of your opponent, just by summoning that one card, as well as being able to play other cards to maximum potential, such as Brilliant Fusion and Emergency Teleport, where other decks lack the ability to use those type of cards. That makes this deck very powerful, as well as being able to extend its plays a little bit by playing rank 5s with the Super Quantums and Prime, as well as also having the utility of using Synchros now, with people starting to play Quick Draw Synchron in their decks to make Ultimate Zulkin, which then in turn will make Crystal Wing Synchro and other cards. So that deck is going to be very powerful going into this event, because of cards like Red Layer, Italy, Prime, and Stormforth is a card that essentially should be in the ban list, but this deck isn't nearly as powerful as the other decks in terms of sealing, because it is, of course, a Tribute Summon deck, and being a Tribute Summon deck or a normal Summon deck, it's really difficult to play through Disruption with this deck, which is why you may see some difficulties. However, we will discuss this a little bit later. We also think this is a very strong contender for the upcoming event. And then we have Performapal Pendulums. Pendulums have been a strategy that are very powerful for obvious reasons. Being able to produce a Soul Charge-esque summon every single turn is very powerful, as well as this deck having a searchable Stratos, searchable Clifford Scout, a searchable Pot of Greed, as well as access to some of the most powerful cards in the game in the form of Abyss Dweller and the Utopia package. Obviously, these cards are very, very powerful, and without these cards, I don't really think that the deck would be able to function as well. That being said, the ability to search these cards and the ability to search free cards such as these makes this deck a very strong contender, as well as with the emergence of the deck playing cards such as Angel Trumpeter. You are able to play Omega, and Instant Fusion becomes infinitely better. The deck is now playing Pendulum Rising as well, which gives a lot more access to this card. And even the Odd Eyes variants of the deck, even those versions are very good, simply for the fact that this deck is able to Pendulum Summon. Problems with this deck in the past have been that it has issues dealing with disruption. However, a reason that's a really strong contender for this event is that we don't expect a lot of disruption to be in the meta in the form of counter traps, because an issue in the past has been cards such as Strike, Chaos Trapple, and we don't expect to see as much of that at YCS Providence. So this deck is going to be a very strong contender. And then the final deck, if you haven't guessed it already, is Cosmo. Now, Cosmo is a very powerful deck because it is a combo deck that's able to generate a huge advantage over the opponent going first. Being a true combo deck, the way that they usually are, this deck plays a lot of cards that, when drawn alone or in multiples, can be very huge bricks. However, when drawn separately and together, those cards can generate huge advantage over the opponent and essentially just wipe them out. This deck also has new support in the form of Dark Lady, as well as Dark Planet. However, Dark Lady is the real star in this set in Shining Victories, as it's essentially just a free summon off of things summoned off of Strawman, off of Sword Troopers when you send it off a Delta Shuttle. This card's very powerful, as well as Cyber Dragon Infinity access, which other decks don't have anymore because of the banning of Ptolemaeus. This card is also very powerful, and these cards alone make this deck a huge contender. However, the ability for this deck to just generate so much advantage that the other decks can't keep up makes it very powerful. Now, just to discuss what decks we think are going to be the most powerful. Generally, we would put decks such as Dante deck, Beatrice deck, as well as decks such as Monarchs, much farther ahead than these decks in an event, because in those events we would expect a lot more disruption, which these are worser in this situation for different reasons. Dante deck, BA, is it has a harder matchup because we don't expect as much disruption in the YCS, and that basically means that this deck, even though it's still a good deck, it doesn't have the advantage over the other decks that it once had. If we did expect a lot of Cliff Forts at the event, then of course we would make BAs the best deck to take to the event. However, because of the lack of traps that will be at the event, as we assume, we don't think that Burning Abyss will be as strong of an option as, say, a combo deck such as these three decks, Monarchs being the lowest ceiling of the combo decks. So we would think that these are a lot more powerful. However, the fact that Monarchs are not able to create as much of a board presence as the Pendulum deck as well as Cosmo, that also takes it a little bit out of favor. Which leaves these two decks not exactly sure which deck's going to prevail in the tournament. However, with the lack of with disruption decks outside of really Clifford Demise, which has seen a lot of popularity. Cosmo and Performapal Pendulums, we think will take a majority of the spots in the top 32 of YCS Providence. And if it doesn't take the majority, we definitely think that one of these two decks are definitely going to win the event. That only being because these decks are able to do a lot more than Burning Abyss and Monarchs. And the fact that they're able to do that just means that in the absence of traps, these decks going first or maybe even going second because of the lack of disruption will able to put out a lot more advantage and just really overwhelm these other decks. Which deck will actually win the event? It's too soon to tell. However, we definitely do believe that these two decks are going to be the most powerful going into this event. Cosmo being because it's able to create those unbreakable boards, and Pendulums because of its access to so many extra deck monsters and recursion every single turn that a lot of decks just really can't keep up with that. So thank you for watching. This has been FJ, signing out.